The following video has been rated PG-13 for, it's pretty good, if you're 13. It's boring! Establishing shot. Let's do this. Oh, hey Sally, what's up? What is that? Oh, you're sharing? Yes, I'd love some of your bloody meat. It is an absolutely beautiful day here in Buena Park, California. Just outside of Anaheim, California, just outside of Orange County, just outside of Los Angeles. And we are returning, well, first time that you've come with me, but I am returning to a place I haven't been to since I was probably 5 or 6 years old. And while a lot has changed, a lot's still the same. Join me from Knott's Berry Farm today as we do just a little spin. Now, before there was a theme park here, or even talk about a theme park, there was a big chunk of land here that was owned by the Knotts family, ergo the name, and they grew berries here. And the claim to fame was that this is where the boysenberry is originally from. Now, there is actually a little bit of controversy as to whether or not Knott himself is the one that brought about the boysenberry. There's some evidence that there was actually a couple of farmers involved, and Knotts is just the man who was able to see the potential of the berry to bring it forward and to perfect it, if you will. Neither here nor there. During the Great Depression, things weren't so good here, and to make ends meet, he put together what's over there. I give you what is currently Mrs. Knott's Chicken Dinner Restaurant. Now, Walter Knott was a businessman and a farmer, and his wife was looking for some way to, kind of make ends meet during the Great Depression. So she started hosting at their house chicken dinners. Chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetable, piece of bread, drink, for a decent price. And they just started packing them in. This is not the original building. That's changed, because we're talking, nearly 100 years. I don't think they had the big chicken, but they had lots of chicken. I've actually eaten here before, and it took us nearly 3 hours to get a table. The park is just opening, but by the time this evening rolls around, there will be people lined up out the door and up the porch here, no doubt. To handle the increasing crowds over the years, they just kept adding and adding and adding on to the restaurant itself. And even then, it was still not quite enough. So Walter had an idea. Being a bit of a super fan of the Old West, Mr. Knotts actually went out and bought a ghost town. Like, honestly, he went out and bought the buildings of a ghost town. And he moved it across the desert and stuck it here. That's really what we're going to be looking at today. You see, while we have the theme park here, back in the day, people got tired of just standing around waiting to get into the restaurant. And rather than have them disappear, Mr. Knotts added the ghost town as a way to, kind of keep people around and entertained while they waited for their table to open up at Mrs. Knott's restaurant. Now, of course, since then, there's been a whole bunch of new things going on. There's the bakery over here. There are stores all over the place. Heck, there's a TGI Fridays and even an Independence Hall across the street. Like, literally, he built Independence Hall across the street. Because if there's one thing that Mr. Knotts was a big fan of, it was boysenberries. And the Old West. And liberty. And ghost towns. And as soon as you enter, the Old West theming is very evident. Now, we're in the middle of Boysenberry Festival here at Knott's Berry Farm, where they're selling a whole bunch of purple, gear, lots of food, lots of drinks that have the boysenberry in them. I'm not sure if that's going to take over any of the stuff that we wanted to see while we're here, but let's find out. Something that's easily overlooked when you see all the roller coasters blaring past is there are a lot of antiques that Mr. Knott has invested in over the years. Most of the stuff you see here is real and really old. Currently, Knott's Berry Farm is owned by the Cedar Fair Corporation, and Cedar Fair is also the owner of Cedar Point, which is from Cleveland, Cleveland-ish. That's where I'm from. You can definitely feel a lot of the same influences. Cedar Point has a pioneer area rather than a western area, but the gift stores and the food and a lot of the newer rides are pretty much the same. And in just in case you were curious about the exact dates, apparently it was 1920 when Walter and Cordelia brought their young family to Buena Park. It's been a while since the last time I was here, and I'm not overly familiar with the layout of this park. So, you know, we might go into a couple of alleys and dead ends. Wait a minute. Are those rocking chairs actually moving on their own? It really is a ghost town. This looks vaguely familiar. Classy. If you're in the Old West, you have to have a shooting gallery, right? Looks like they've got one. You could either shoot with a rifle or with a pistol. Looks like they got some sweet and spicy boysenberry jerky for sale over there. That might be for later. When I was here last in the early 80s, I know my parents got a whole bunch of jams and jellies from Knott's Berry Farm. It wasn't just boysenberry, it was strawberry and grape. We had those for years, which you probably shouldn't actually have those for years and eat them for years, but it was a good memory. I didn't eat them. There lots of botulism, I'm sure, but maybe get some new ones this time. And then, you know, eat them or throw them away after about a week and a half. Looks like even the Ghost Town Grill is getting in on the berries. Boysenberry Meatball Sub, the Berry Gobbler, the Berry Beast, Berry Teriyaki Grilled Salmon. No thanks, I'm not berry hungry. Looks like the Smithy Shop is open today, and they do a lot of school tours here. The blacksmith was just mentioning that today might be a little harried for demonstrations with all the schools here. And right here is the building that made me decide I had to come here today while I'm in town. Obviously, somebody's already trying to get out of here. That right there is the money shot. There's someone I want to introduce you to. You in there, Sad-Eye?
Where else would I be?
I don't know. I was just told I need to get in there, so I figured they'd pull you out of there.
Oh, no.
No.
Not for another 72 years.
Well, I mean, is the horse even going to be around at that point?
Well, the horse is done gone. He's up in horsey heaven. He's up there with all the other dead horses.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Sada, you're looking good in there. For that many years, you're looking good.
I have 72 left to go.
Okay, so I mean, you know, you can do that sitting on your head. I mean, you've done this much, right?
Well, I ain't gonna move too much, I'll tell you that.
Sad-Eye, it was good talking to you this morning, sir.
Well, you have a great day.
I'm working on it. You do the same as much as you can.
Oh, yeah. Bring me back some boysenberry alligator.
I'm sure it's here. I've seen boysenberry, everything else. I'm sure those flowers have boysenberries in them, too.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that right there was Sad-Eye Joe. Now, Sad-Eye Joe stole a horse about 72 years ago. He's been sitting in that box ever since then. And as I understand, he's got 72 more years before they'll let him out. I think he might have had a little touch-up done, you know, a little plastic surgery done a while back. He's looking pretty good for 72. Now, again, I want to point out, a lot of these buildings are actually left over from way back when. They're looking pretty good considering some of these things are over 100 years old. Not all of them, of course. Good morning, sir. Who's this fine-looking specimen?
Dave.
Dave?
Yes. This is Dave, like David.
Oh, Dave. What's up, Dave? I could be wrong, but I think that one is about to bring us more of these. Now, even when you take things past just the ghost town aspect of it, and when they started putting a couple of rides in here, this park is still actually older than Disneyland, which, you know, mid-50s? And this stuff was already old when it showed up here. As we make our way to the back of the ghost town, we found the Boot Hill Undertaker, which apparently has rooms to let. But just off to the right of that, the Birdcage Theater. And there's a lot of history in that building. Unlike a lot of the buildings here, this one is not the original, but it was brought in by Walter Knott. This is actually a replica of the original Birdcage Theater, at least the outside is a replica of the Birdcage Theater, which I believe is in Arizona or New Mexico. Should probably figure that out, but either way, it's famous, very haunted. You might have seen it on like Ghost Hunters back in the day. But this theater has a particular footprint in history outside of just representing a different theater. This theater's famous for the melodrama, which has been going on for years and years and decades and decades. They don't do it every day these days. Usually special occasions. But it's what's over here on this wall that jumps out at us. It's the birds who have flown. people who have been in the melodrama here at the Birdcage. Some of these names and these faces are pretty familiar. Even if you don't know specifically where you've seen them, chances are they're ringing a bell that maybe you've seen them before. Especially that one. You see, in addition to a stint over with Wally Bogue at Disneyland, Steve actually spent a few years over here from the time he was 16, I want to say, up until the point he was either 20 or 22. He was here at the Birdcage Theater doing the melodrama. Dancing, singing, playing the banjo. Oh yeah, he got all that skill in the room behind us. Steve is one of my longtime heroes, not only as a comedian but also as a writer, and it feels really surreal to be standing here. I was really hoping the door would be open for Boysenberry Festival. There'd be something going on there. Doesn't look like that's the case, at least not right now, but it's very early. The park's only been open for half an hour. Maybe later it'll open up and we can actually go in there and see that famous stage. And look at that. Looks like maybe it will be open for us to take a look at it later. And they've even provided a nice, cool, shady place for us to wait. Continuing around the corner, we got the town hall, the toy store, and the glass blower. Or we could make a left and go to the old schoolhouse and the dance hall. Let's try that first. Looks like the schoolhouse itself comes from 1879 in Iowa. Or at least it was settled by people from Iowa in Kansas before moving to California. Okay, it doesn't matter. What matters is it's really old.
Welcome, new classmen. What grades are the both of you in?
Come here. Closer.
Let's take a look at Town Hall, too. It's a pretty vacant building. It looks like they're going to tell the story of what brought all this here.
If you're wondering what happened to the American dream, you're looking at it.
Pie kitchen, cookie, and waffle decorating. I think that's back over here, but I think the building itself is another schoolhouse. Yes, it looks like this one actually was local, though, from 1868. Cutting down one of the little alleys here, I see the Mystery Lodge up ahead, which I believe is a show of sorts, and a berm. But I hear running water, too. Looks like whatever happens here at the Mystery Lodge isn't going to happen for another couple of hours, so we'll definitely come back for that one. In the meantime, will you look at the size of those frickin' goldfish? Here's their Pony Express themed roller coaster. And why is it Pony Express themed? Well, see for yourself. Just past the Pony Express themed roller coaster, we get into the Charles M. Schulz Theater, and right here before it, bumper cars. And what is easily one of the largest bumper car arenas I've ever seen. But as you can tell from the tiki-themed pizza place over there, and all the Snoopy stuff, we aren't in the Old West anymore. Over here is their dark ride, Voyage to the Iron Reef. That fairly recently replaced a Dinosaur Kingdom dark ride, which was animatronic dinosaurs like you would expect, with some weird time travel-y scientist thing going on too. But when I was here 30 years ago, it was a very surreal and trippy dark ride. It was about a bunch of dancing animals trying to thwart a coyote from stealing pie. Now I know what you're thinking, that doesn't sound like it would make for a very good ride, but I assure you, it's even worse than you're thinking it was. Dead ahead though, you get right back into the western area, the ghost town, and the Calico Mine. And I would never forgive myself if we didn't get to go into the Calico Mine. And what, pray tell, is the Calico Mine? Why, it's one of the most historic and elaborate dark rides ever. We have to check this out. Looks like a train's about to take some people into the mine right now. Let's see if we can get on it. Wow, we don't see that at Disney. If you have any interest in learning the deep history of the Calico Mine, my friend Sam from Expedition Theme Park put together a great video on the history of the ride, and we're gonna make sure that you get a link to that. So, have you been on this before?
I have.
Thoughts?
I think it's fun, like kind of laid back, chill.
Cool. Historical. You've been on this before too? Awesome, awesome. So I hear like just horrible, like huge drops, and it throws you out of the ride, and you're lucky to survive.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of scared of that new one over here. What is that? The hang time.
That looks a little more Yeah. Guess we're about to find out.
Come on. Take a look at these old bubbling mud puddles.
Very smart, and we all have lots with the kingdom come.
Wow, wait! What a sight! Just look at all them formations. Stalactites and stalagmites. Not much at all. So keep your hands in nonsense. Now we're going to the newest parts of the mine.
Just a couple quick thoughts getting off of that. It is definitely worth the hype. The scope and scale of the Calico Mine is absolutely amazing. Dozens and dozens of animatronics. Some of them are, you know, showing some signs of age. This thing has been here for decades and decades, but it's got just the right amount of thrills, but it's still calm enough that you can really bring anybody on it. Definitely check it out. Also left over from back in the day, a genuine steam train. When I did the train 30-odd years ago, dang, there was a simulated train robbery. I'm curious. Let's see if they still have that. Let's see if we can get ourselves robbed.
Next question. What year was...
Yep, robbed. Looks like the judge is on hand over there today, and he's emptying ice into that building for some reason, which reminds me, I'm a bit parched. Thankfully, I know just where I could find myself a sarsaparilla. All right, I suppose I go get myself a sarsaparilla right over there. I'm a little curious as to what a calico soda is, and why it's 675 calories. She found her gun, we're all in danger. Exiting back out, we come to a nice little courtyard. Looks like the general store is right here. I've already had my sarsaparilla. Maybe cigars? Wait, I don't smoke. Looks like there's plenty of old-timey fun to be had. And, you know, new school tchotchke fun. And of course, boysenberries. Some interesting flavors here. Ghost Town Cowboy Teriyaki, Draft Ale, Boysenberry, Sad-Eye Joe. Man, he's got his own jerky. I wonder if Sad-Eye's getting royalties for that. Boysenberry soap, Boysenberry candles, Boysenberry nothing. Just apparently on the sign. Disappointing. They've got a bottle house here. I haven't seen one of these in a few years. Looks like it's generally themed more towards Native American type gifts. Boot Hill Diggins. Ominous. Ominous indeed. Yeah, I guess good old Sad-Eye could have had it much worse. And of course, more antiques from back in the day. Well, that's one way to make a living. Now, I'd be remiss if I did not show you the biggest attraction in Ghost Town. Actually, probably the entirety of Knott's Berry Farm. This is the Ghost Rider, which is obviously a pretty good-sized wooden roller coaster. I don't think it's all that old. It certainly has that classic look to it, but Cedar Fair, who owns Knott's Berry Farm, is well known for their roller coasters. And they have certainly built an imposing beast with this one. You know, I've never really been huge on boysenberry, but boysenberry jerk chicken wings, that might have to be on my dance card for later. Sad Eye, I got a question for you, buddy.
Holy cow, big grizzly bear just came up to my window.
Yeah, he's back again. Sad Eye, I gotta ask you, man, they're selling Sad Eye Joe beef jerky back there. Are they cutting you in on this?
No, I didn't know anything about it.
I figure maybe they're getting rid of the evidence.
What, they're eating the horse?
I mean, they could be. People have done worse, right?
Well, yeah, but that horse has been gone for, God, at least 60 years.
Well, I hope they're cutting you in on this at some point.
Well, the sheriff hasn't given me anything.
I gotta go find the sheriff. I gotta right this injustice.
All right.
You stay there. I'll go find him.
And you didn't bring me any Jack Daniels either, did you?
Well, I mean, they have Sad Eye Joe Jack Daniels too, but I figured you knew about that one as well.
Oh no.
I'm gonna go with the lawyer. Hold on a sec. You stay here. I'll be right back.
I'll be here.
All right, we've put it off long enough. Let's get to the voyage to the Iron Reef. Oh, good. There's a gun. Alright, so it's another one of those screen shooting rides where you get on a dark ride of sorts and you just fire at things on the screen. I'm not traditionally a fan of those. They all tend to be the same thing. They tend to age very poorly. The graphics are usually kind of crap after a while. The guns get so much abuse they don't really work. The aim is always off. It was okay. Honestly, if they're going to do dark rides, stick with things like the Calico Mine.
There's poison in these parts, just as far as the eye can see.
I believe the Birdcage might be open. Hello there. Afternoon, sir.
You gonna go see the show?
I am most certainly going to see the show.
Enjoy yourself.
I'm sure I will, thank you. Now, I know that there's a canopy ceiling here, but as I understand, when this first opened, this was entirely outside. And I figure, you know, we'll get right up front today. Best seat in the house.
The Birdcage Theater was the only daily operating melodrama in the United States. And during Knott's Boysenberry Festival, not only do we celebrate that wonderful berry that made us a household name, but we also take time to pay tribute and homage to our unique and colorful heritage. And so as an homage to that wonderful past, we are proud to once again present a comedy melodrama right here on the stage of the Birdcage Theater!
Thank you, but I'm just doing my job. I'm looking for Lucretia Luscious.
I'm luscious.
Yes, you are. Yes, she is. Oh, yes, she is.
Must I remind you that I own the horse you rode in? Oh, good grief, it's a running gag.
Actually, it's a running nag!
Laugh while you have the chance. It doesn't get much funnier than this.
And now they're going to greet the adoring public. Now, I don't want to make it sound like there's nothing more to the park than Ghost Town, because there is. There's this boardwalk area right here that's just full of roller coasters and thrill rides, like that beast right there. Those people are re-examining their life choices at the moment. Now they're not thinking about it at all. And this area is cool too. There's lots of stuff over here for the thrill fans. I'm more of a theming guy and a history guy. So as much as this is cool, it just doesn't have the same draw as the Ghost Town. This beast is called the Supreme Scream. I'm pretty sure you can figure out what it does. We have one of these at Cedar Point in Cleveland, called the Tower of Terror. The names are a little bit on the nose, but, you know, who am I to judge? Leaving the boardwalk area, there's also another themed area back here, which is, you know, sort of themed like a Mexican village, almost. To me, the Mexican village area is a lot like Disney's California Adventure. It's cool, there's some good theming to it, but most of the rides that they've got here are re-themed. You know, they're typical county fair or typical amusement park rides that they've just painted with bright colors. Well, for instance, I happen to know that Cedar Fair has a few of these things. They're not usually Mexican themed. This one is. The centerpiece, I would say, would be the pyramid here, the Aztec pyramid. This is the entrance to the roller coaster Jaguar, which is the track you see around us. Well, it looks like the Jaguar is getting ready to go now, actually. You know, I'm not entirely sure what to make out of this one. You know what? I take it back. I know exactly what I think about this one. Leaving Fiesta Village, we're going into their version of Camp Snoopy. And I say their version because there's actually like a half-dozen Camp Snoopies across the country. And no real surprise, it's mainly for kids and their families. It's generally like smaller versions of big kid rides. Ferris wheels, little coasters, things like that. Well, like this. A little Easter egg here in Camp Snoopy is the prospector and his mule. That's been sitting there for years. Well, a version of that has been sitting here for years. It's actually facing out onto the main avenue outside of the park, and it kind of, you know, brings people into the park. If you were looking for where it is, come back to Camp Snoopy, very back corner, check out history. They've got characters walking around too if you're at all interested. Like that one right there is Napoleon Dynamite. They even have their own little railroad. And of course, before I finish off the day, I've got to have some boysenberry. In this case, I went with the boysenberry jerk wings. Not bad, per se. I wouldn't call it jerk. Like boysenberry barbecue, boysenberry syrup. Not a whole lot of jerk to it, not a whole lot of spice to it. Could have used more. But, you know, I've fulfilled my boysenberry quota, so off we go. Well, it looks like the shadows are starting to get a little bit longer. The day's starting to get a little bit shorter here in Knott's Berry Farm. So I think it's about time for me to mosey on down the trail. I'm going to ask you, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, there's a subscribe button below. Give it a like, subscribe. If you want, a share. I certainly won't stop you. You know what? I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time when we do, I don't know, just a little squat.
I'm luscious.
Yes, you are.
Splorin Ryan has been filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Sit, 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 sit!